Welcome back, you guys. And here is part two. Austin, go ahead and lead us off.
Yeah, so I think the where we left off at was I was in the hospital. I kind of went through everything, the illnesses and things that I had, and yeah, so spent 2 months in the hospital. After that, I had a close family friend of mine pick me up, and his name, Brock was his name, and Brock picked me up, and he brought me to a place called the Mission House. And the Mission House, which I hold very near and dear to my heart, and I'm actually still very attached and close to the ministry today. And the Mission House, and I'll just give you guys a brief description of what it is.
I was just going to say, what is a mission
Yeah,
house?
it's so basically what it is, it's a 6 to 9 month discipleship program, period. Right? We could stop with that, but there's some subsets involved with it. So what they do is they take guys like myself who are coming off the streets or coming off out of bad marriages or bad situations, and they house them for 6 to 9 months and they teach them about the Bible. And so for 6 to 9 months, you're in a home with 7 to 10 other guys, and you are learning about the Bible. You're
Okay.
learning, what does the Bible teach? What does the Bible say about who we are? What does the Bible say about who is important in the world, which is people?
Yeah.
What does the Bible say about God? What does the Bible say about Jesus, etc.? And so Brock picks me up. He takes me to the Mission House, and I spend 7.5 months there. It's the best experience that one of the best experiences that I've had in my life. And this is why. I had just spent 2 months in the hospital.
Mhm.
Prior to that, I had been homeless for almost a year. I
Wow.
was doing drugs. I was in a very bad place.
And when you say homeless, like you were just living on the streets?
Yeah, very, very homeless. So
Okay.
some people, Tasha, like when people say, "Oh, I was homeless,"
Mm-hmm.
that's really, some people are just saying, "I was
It's
sleeping
so
on my friend's
different.
couch,"
Yeah. Yeah.
or "I didn't own my own home,"
Mm-hmm.
or "I was couch surfing."
Yeah. What was your experience as homeless?
I was sleeping on the bench
Oh
on a
my
park. I was
gosh.
sleeping under the lion at Noah's Ark. I
Wow.
was sleeping wherever I could sleep.
Yeah.
I was panhandling daily to make money to support my drug habit. And at that point in time, it wasn't just like, hey, I'm out here doing drugs because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm out here doing drugs because if I don't, I'm going to get really sick and I can't
Mm-hmm.
function as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's problems, and there's health, and there's mental, and there's
Yeah.
all these things that come along with it. And fortunately, and by the grace of God, I was able to pull out of that,
Yeah.
and still, I mean, we're talking right now. If I didn't
Yeah.
tell you I was a drug addict, you would never know.
Well, that's the last I had heard is, when I ran into your mom, she was saying you were, living on the streets and whatnot. And then fast forward a couple years and then I run into you and I'm like, oh my God, Austin, you look great. So that's when we were like, let's do a
Like,
podcast.
she lied to you, Tasha Joe. She's making up stories.
No.
No, she wasn't lying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it was, though. It was homelessness. It
Yeah.
was, you see the guy standing on the sign. They call that flying signs.
Okay.
So if you're somebody who wants to go out and hold a sign on the corner of Kitsap Way and Highway 16
Yeah.
or whatever it is, they call that, hey, I'm going to go fly a sign,
Okay.
right? That's what homeless people call it.
Okay.
And you go to 7-Eleven on 6th and Park and you see 10 homeless people standing on the left or the right of the building.
Yeah.
You see people just trying to survive, because whatever it is, people just don't become homeless, okay?
Yeah.
Something happens to them. There's a marquee moment in their life, which then usually has a snowball effect over the course of time. And then it's 90% of the time it's drugs. So
Yeah.
any person that you've seen that's homeless, the 10% that are homeless because they're not on drugs, God, pray for those people.
Yeah. And now were you like literally on the streets for those
Yes.
couple years,
Yes.
or did like people bring you in and out, or
No, I was on the streets. I was on the streets. Occasionally I would sleep in a trap house, so a drug house that
Mm-hmm.
you could, if you had money, you could sleep in a trap house because you were just buying drugs, and they're like, as long as you're spending money there, you could stay there, right?
Okay.
But if you don't have money, they're not
Yeah.
just letting people stay there, right?
Okay.
So
Who runs these trap houses?
the drug lords of
Oh my
Bremerton,
god.
Washington.
Like, I'm like, "What? Who runs these places?"
Uh, people
Ugh.
who have parents who do not, or Section 8, or
Yeah.
government housing, or there's so many different little, sects of things or
Mhm.
circumstances that allow people to have these trap houses, and
Okay.
but a lot of the ones that I experienced, and I experienced a lot. I mean, I had I got s I had SWAT pull up. I had got arrested by SWAT, doors kicked in, arrested, put in the
Wow.
back of a tank, a SWAT tank, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And I can get into that later, but yeah, and
So what was your aha moment or, like, when you came out of being homeless?
so it would have been okay. So the first time I was homeless, I never really truly was like looking for a way out.
Yeah.
I kind of was just stuck. I was younger. I was
Mhm.
still in my 20s
Yeah.
then, like mid 20s.
Okay.
And I just, like, never really looked for a way out. I was kinda just rolling with the punches.
Mhm.
I was like, "I still got a lot of life left in me. I'm invincible," type situation. And when your life experience is masked with drugs, then responsibility and the things that truly matter in life, like, your kids,
Yeah.
your family,
Were
the
you in
people.
contact with them during that time?
Eventually, over time,
Yeah.
they just kind of, they're like, "Hey, we just gotta not talk to this guy
Yeah.
because this
Yeah.
guy's not doing well." Well, my last time, right, before I went to the mission house, before I went to the hospital that
Yeah.
time, it was less than a year, but I was to the point there was like a 3, 4-month period of time where I was just looking for a way out, right? I
Yeah.
had been there before, I had done it. I think I was 27, 26, 27, yeah, probably 27 years old,
Okay.
and I just remember looking for a way out,
Yeah.
and when you're doing meth and you're doing heroin and you're combining them, it's an ordeal, all
Yeah.
right? But eventually you get a baseline and it's just normal.
Mhm.
We see people like we saw last night. So Tasha and I, after we ended the podcast last night and we were leaving, she
We
was
hit the
locking up.
town.
We did hit the town. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. She
Yeah.
may or may not have beat me
Whooped your
in
ass
basketball,
at the arcade.
but I'm gonna get some revenge tonight. As we were leaving, there was a homeless woman, and she was going through the trash, and she had, like, tarps and tents set up outside, and they were all over the ground, and I was never that to where I was, like, dragging tents with
Yeah.
me around, but get rid of the tents and the tarps and I never dig through trash or
Yeah.
anything like that because I always knew I had enough, wherewithal and speaking ability
Yeah.
to be able to talk to people.
Okay.
So, like, if you popped out of Mystic Movement and I was walking by outside and I knew, "Hey, every day I know at this time, this girl gets out of here," and I was never a creeper like
Yeah.
that, even when I was homeless,
Yeah.
because I knew in order to get money, you can't be a creeper.
Yeah.
You can't do weird shit or
Yeah.
people will just look at you weird. So I'd always try to carry myself like I wasn't homeless, but I was homeless, homeless.
Mm.
So I would walk by and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm having a really bad day. I know you're just getting off work and you're trying to go home. Is there any way you could spare like $3, $4?"
Okay.
90% of the time, I'd get a $20 bill.
Mm.
And that's how I supported my drug habit. But my aha moment, it was probably the lion situation. I remember one day, well, first of all, and I'll say this, I have really good friends and family,
Yeah.
and you think that you don't until you get down to a place where you have nothing left. And it's your birthday, August 8th, by the way.
Ooh,
And
Lionsgate portal. And we were just talking about astrology, but I did not know your birthday was on the 8th. That's the
yes,
Lionsgate portal.
the Lion's Gate.
I'll explain all that later, but keep
I'm
going.
excited. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break and
Yeah.
then we're going to talk about the Lions Gate. Just kidding. Okay, Um, so yeah, August 8th, my birthday, but I had friends like Brian Foley. I had friends like Justin Richardson. Shout out Jay Rich. I was just talking to him before I got here. Um, Family, friends, my mom,
Mhm.
just people who actually really cared about me.
Yeah.
on my birthday or even just random days of the week. You remember Mallory Gaborio,
Mhm.
her husband,
Yeah.
her family, they would drive to Bremerton. They live in Paulsville, and they would drive up and down Kitsap Way looking for me. So
Oh,
they could give me a couple bucks, they could give me a pizza, they could give me a cake, whatever
yeah.
it was, because they knew they could find me walking because I was always walking.
Yeah.
I was on the move, right?
Yeah.
And there used to be this joke is like, "Where's Austin at?" And people would post pictures of me on Facebook and be like, "Hey, we know where Austin's at today."
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but my there was a couple aha moments, but the biggest one was the last time that I was at Noah's Ark, which I used to sleep under the lion there just because I felt comfort there.
Mhm.
And there's a parking spot, and right behind the parking spot, there's like one of those curbs,
Okay.
right? You pull up and then you pull all the way till you hit the curb and you park.
Yeah.
Behind the curb was a sidewalk. Underneath or above the sidewalk was the lion. I used to sleep between the curb and the sidewalk. There was like this little indentation that I could sleep in. And I would just lay down and pass out for 3 or 4 hours, wake up and get after it, right? One night, I just remember looking up at that lion going, "What the fuck
Mm.
am I doing here?"
Mhm.
And I remember just thinking to myself like, "Dude, like if if you don't if you don't do something, you're going to be here with this lion for the rest of your life."
Mm.
Right? You're going to be sleeping in the park across the street. You're going to be asking people for money that they worked their ass off to get instead of doing what God has gifted you with, which is the skill to speak and network and work hard. And by the way, still have good health.
Yeah.
Like I'd never had any disease or any health issues or anything like that. Right. And so I just remember having that moment and going, I gotta get out of this. And so I would call around and I was trying to get into detoxes and I was trying to get into, anything I could try and get into that would get me off the street and give me a
Yeah.
shot at getting back to normal.
Yeah.
And that's when I think it was maybe 3 months after that. That's when I got sick and went to the hospital. And then I
Okay.
went to the mission house. And if anybody knows anything about recovery centers or whatever. In this case, it was the Mission House, which is not an AA or NA based. Hey, my name is Austin. I'm an alcoholic or an addict. It's
Mhm.
in the Bible. It says that God has made you a new creation,
Mm.
right? You are a new creation. You are not beholden or beheld to the identity of your past. So when you meet Jesus and it says he came to set the captives free.
Yeah.
He came to heal the sick. He didn't come he didn't come to judge the world, but he came to save it, you
Yeah.
know? And so when I think about that and I think about where I was at, I think about like there's no situation or thing that I've done that I haven't been forgiven for. So to have that understanding, which I learned when I was in the mission house, it's a huge deal because a
Mhm.
lot of us get stuck in this rut, right? You think about
And
like
victim
yeah,
mentality.
big time.
Yeah.
You think about like if you're driving and everybody's been stuck in the mud somewhere,
Mhm.
right? Everybody's driven a car and like they're spinning out and they can't get out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe you have a friend with you that's like, "Hey, all you got to do."
There's always a way out.
Right. All you
Mhm.
got to do is pull your floor mat out
Yeah.
and dig a little bit of that mud, put your floor mat down, and it'll give you just enough traction to get out of
Mhm.
that rut,
Mhm.
right? That's what the mission house was for me,
Okay.
but like on steroids. And so I remember looking back, going through the mission house, and I'm thinking about it right now. And I remember getting out of the hospital, and I remember Brock picking me up, and we pull into the mission house. And I'll say this everybody's in that situation is different going into that setting, right? You have 7 to 10 other guys. And some people have never lived with that many people before. They don't
Yeah.
know how to act when you're around a group of other men, old and young, by the way.
Mhm.
The oldest person there, we called him Blue from freaking old school. You're my boy, Blue. You're my boy. That we called him Blue because he was like 78 years old.
Yeah.
And he looked like Blue from old school. Even the director called him Blue.
Oh my
And his name
God.
was Steve. He's doing good to this day. Reconciliation with his daughters. He's got 2 beautiful daughters and grandkids. The dude's living it up. He's doing great.
Good.
Right? He was my first roommate, Tasha.
Really?
I slept next to a 75
Oh my
year
gosh.
old man for the first 2 months in
Wow.
the same room.
Wow.
And I had to learn what that was like. Right? Okay. So everybody has a different experience. Some people go there and then they end up leaving right away. They don't want to be there.
Everybody's journey is so different.
Yeah. When I got to the mission house, I just remember pulling up and there was this big, huge cross right in front of the house. And I'm talking 12 feet tall. Like you're talking a 16, 18 foot across like log, right?
Yeah.
The width of it.
Yeah.
Diameter was probably like 24 inches or something like that.
Wow.
And then the cross member was the same. And I just remember pulling up to the house, seeing the cross and going, oh, just a deep breath.
Yeah.
I was like, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm somewhere that is not on the freaking corner of 6th and whatever. I'm not underneath the lion at Noah's Ark. I'm not on 6th and Park. I'm not on Kitsap Way. I'm not in Silverdale or wherever I was asking people for money.
Yeah.
By the way, you guys, I have been kicked out of every single corner store
Oh my God.
in Kitsap County.
Really?
At least 3 times. Okay.
They're like, you gotta go.
Yeah, they're like, bro, you can't just ask every single person for money that comes into the store, dude. I'm like, okay, fine. And then I'll show up like 2 weeks later with like a new hairdo and like a new hat and like a coat. And I'm just like, they're like, we know it's you, bro.
Oh my
I'm just like,
God.
damn it. You got me. Okay. So I pull up to the mission house and I just remember seeing the cross and I just almost remember crying, but I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God, for getting me here.
Yeah.
Because I'm no longer captured by this reality of chains.
Yeah.
Right? I think everybody has their own experience in something that they felt stuck in. Mine was drugs and homelessness.
Yeah.
And you get used to that life. Some people get used to that bad relationship that they're stuck in.
Yeah.
And we can speak
Well,
to that.
people get comfortable.
Yeah, they get comfortable in their sin, in their bad lifestyle,
Yeah.
in their bad marriage. It doesn't even
Bad
have to.
habits,
It
yeah.
doesn't have to even necessarily be something that is society deems as wrong.
Yeah.
It could just be something that is not beneficial. And sometimes that non-beneficial thing can be a real problem, right? Because you're not graduating.
Yeah.
You're not gaining. You're not moving forward.
Yeah.
You're just stuck in this perpetual circle of whatever you're used to, right? And before you know it, it's 10 years have gone by.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
like, WTF,
Yeah.
Tasha Joe.
Yeah.
What am I still doing here
Yeah.
on 6th and Park with these other people, right? But I'm able to look back on that and go, who can I help now, right?
And being so grateful for that experience, even though it was hard. I
gosh.
mean, it got you to where you are.
Oh my
now,
gosh.
too.
I'm
Yeah.
so thankful for it because going through the mission house, it was like not only did we get an education on life, right? But we worked 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So we would wake up at 6 a.m. We would get up. We would study the Bible for an hour, like on our own time. Usually we had some sort of homework or a homework packet or some sort of workbook that we would
Yeah.
work through. And then at 7, we would all start making breakfast. And usually what we tried to do, me and my buddy David, rest in peace. He died last year from a fentanyl overdose. One of my best friends in the whole freaking world.
Sorry.
And yeah. And so he got there 2 weeks before me. He was like my best friend ever.
Yeah.
Like he's one of my best, closest friends. And he was my age. And so he was there about 14 days before I did. I came, and then him and I immediately just became friends.
Yeah.
We were brothers right away. And then we graduated together. And I'll try and send it to you, but I have a DVD of our graduation, and it's
cool.
like 2 hours long. And I
Yeah.
have I speak in front of, I think there's 400 people there,
Oh,
Tasha.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
But I had long hair like a lion.
Oh my God.
I had a lion's mane.
Did
and
you
a
do the whole
beard.
messy bun?
I did. I'll show you a picture
Yeah.
after we get off.
Yeah.
It's a good one. So, but yeah, so, we would wake up 6 a.m., study, 7 a.m., breakfast, And then we would get ready for the day, pack our lunches, and then Bible study started at 8.
Okay.
And usually it would be a different teacher every day.
Yeah.
So we would have a different Bible study teacher, whether it was we had everybody from West Davis from Central Kitsap campus to Ken O'Reilly from the Bremerton campus of New Life to, Jeff Davis, who is one of the lead pastors at Peninsula Bible Fellowship right by the old double-decker golf course.
Okay.
On Wheaton Way, Old Wheaton Way there, whatever it is.
Yeah.
From, Zach Anderson, shout out Zach, Pastor Zach. And just so on and so forth, and Godwin Salembo and Travis Sandvik and all these mentors of mine and beautiful, awesome people who have been a part of my journey.
Yeah.
But our Bible teachers, and then eventually I got the, invitation to start teaching there.
Yeah.
And so I went from doing that, which we would do Bible study, and then we would go work for, usually it was between 4 to 7 hours a day, depending on what we were doing. And then we would come home, we would eat dinner quickly.
So you were on a schedule.
Yep. It was a very strict schedule.
Yeah.
And then we would, and then we would come home, eat, and then we would have Bible study again.
Okay.
So 2 Bible studies a day, 5 days a week, work in between. Saturday was a chill day. We could watch movies, go out with our families, all that stuff. But Sunday was church. And when I was in the house.
And how long were you in the house for?
7.5 months.
Okay.
And then when I graduated the house, I became the house manager. So I was there for about, I think it was about a year.
Okay.
I didn't want to leave, Tasha.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
I didn't want to leave.
It was probably scary to
Well, yeah, it was, but it was like I was getting married.
Yeah.
And my wife couldn't move into the men's mission house.
Oh, so you guys had met while you were in.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I met her on christianmingle.com.
Oh, okay.
I was like, hold up. Let me just see what's going on with the mingle over here. And and we'll get into that a little bit later, but I became the house manager, and so my job was just to, make sure the guys had the work phones, make sure they weren't doing anything too crazy, and just check in on them, encourage them, and just be somebody they can, every day they wake up and they say, hey, that guy did it.
Yeah.
And he's still here.
Yeah.
And then I started teaching there, and I became, and at that point in time, I was the house manager there, and then I was the high school youth lead for the North Kitsap New Life.
Okay.
So every Wednesday night I would go to, back then it was Church of the Nazarene. Now it's at the Creative Consortium building, which is towards Suquamish. But we would go and have youth, and 50, 60 students from North Kitsap High School. And I was in charge of the high school students.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky because I played basketball for CK, woo woo, right?
Yeah.
And my students were all basketball players, most of them.
Wow.
In fact, they won the state championship.
Awesome.
Boom. No big deal. I'm just saying, shout out Shaw Humphrey and Kobe. Those 2 boys helped lead their team to a state championship. And I had the absolute pleasure of seeing them through their spiritual journey.
Yeah.
They went to summer camp. They were at youth group every Wednesday, but here they are, these 2 good looking studs playing basketball. All the honeys probably trying to get after them.
Yeah.
And they're at youth group on Wednesday talking about Jesus. And so it's just awesome.
That's incredible.
And so I had that. And then you could call it preaching at a few different church locations. And it was a lot, right? You start doing all this stuff to kind of stay busy, and eventually you got to look at your schedule and go, what? I got a lot going on here. Tasha Joe, you know all about that.
Yeah. Everybody knows that about me too. I'm a busy bee.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place.
I show up and Tasha's walking up and down the hallway with paperwork in her hand, and she's talking to this person. You got to call this person. And then somebody walks in. She's answering her phone. She's doing this. She's doing that. She's like, hey, look at the screen over here and listen to it. Tell me what you think. And then she leaves, and she's
Virgo, ADD. Yep, that's me.
But you nail it. You make it look good. So
Thanks.
Good for you, Tasha.
Thank you.
And so, so Mission House, and I've been there, and I just, at that point in time, Tasha, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave because I've become so attached. Again, we talked about drug court earlier, right? And I had become so attached to the family mentality.
Yep.
I got so attached to that group mentality, and same thing with the Mission House. I got so attached to, and it's hard sometimes because you
Yeah.
see guys come in and leave.
Yeah.
You see guys come in and they're almost ready to graduate and they make a bad decision and they leave.
Yeah.
Right? They're a month, they're 2 weeks. I'll tell this story. There was a guy and he was 3 days from graduating.
No.
And he decided to make a bad decision. And this was a guy who had been to prison, and he was extremely talented in his trade. And just thinking about it makes me freaking so sad because I think he's in prison right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you're going to graduate this. And he had
So
been there for a
close.
year
Yeah.
doing the thing, working his
He
butt
was
off.
days away.
Yeah, days away from standing in front of all these people saying, I did it. And he self-sabotages.
Yeah.
And I'm in a predicament, right? I'm a house manager, and I have to make a decision. And I'm just like, oh, my God, what do I do? He's going to graduate in 2 more days, 3 days. And I'm stuck with this decision to make going, do I tell the leadership here? Because I'm kind of like I'm the halfway point, right?
Yeah.
It's the house, then it's me, and then it's the director and the board of directors, right? And so he didn't do any like hard drugs, but he smoked weed.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm going, okay.
Which who doesn't? I mean,
Now,
there's a lot of people.
yeah, for sure. But this
Yeah.
is 7 years
Yeah.
ago, right? And so I'm going, what do I do with this guy? And so I went to one of the other kind of senior guys in the house.
Okay.
One of the guys that was getting ready to graduate. He had been there for almost a year, and he was older than me.
Okay.
And I said, hey, man, here's the situation. So-and-so did this. Here's where he's at. Tell me what you think. And so we decided, hey, we're going to sit down and talk to him and see where his head's at, right?
Yeah.
Because what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to send this guy, because I knew, based off of the discussion that we had with him, that he was going to leave the house if he didn't graduate.
Okay.
But I'm also like, well, you kind of just smoked weed and disgraduated yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I do here? Well, the Bible says, hey, if there is a dispute like that, grab someone else and talk to them about it. And if you can handle it, grab another brother, basically.
Yeah.
See what they say. And if you guys can handle it there, awesome. But if it's something of a higher, a little bit more importance, like if he would have said, hey, man, I just smoked some meth, then I would have had to go immediately and tell the leadership. But it was weed, and I never told the leadership, and I've never told anybody this story. And so I talked to one of the elder guys in the house, and I said, hey, what do you think? And he goes, man, honestly, if he doesn't graduate, like, I think he might kill himself, dude. I was like, are you serious, bro? He's like, yeah. Like, I think he's just so nervous about graduation that he doesn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah.
And so we never said anything. And I don't know that it was the right or the wrong decision, but I know he went through some stuff later on. But those are the types of decisions that I had to deal with as the house manager.
Yeah.
So we moved forward. We got house manager. We got youth group. We have volunteering at churches. My schedule is absolutely packed, and it's packed with great things.
Yeah.
And I meet this gal on Christian Mingle, and she's amazing at the time. And
Currently who you're going through a divorce with, correct?
Divorce, yes.
Okay.
She's filed for divorce, but
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful, but I'm not sure which direction to go in.
Yeah.
And so we can talk about that either on another episode.
Yeah.
Maybe after I see one of your mystic movement personnel that specializes in
He
this.
definitely booked a couple appointments with Alex and Joni today, so I'm super excited for that. You'll get the guidance you need.
Yeah, I'm just trying to open up my
try new things.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I love people who are open-minded.
And listen, you guys, if anybody loves Jesus in this world, it's me.
Yeah.
And you could say, oh, well, if you're doing this, this, and this, you don't love Jesus. Well, I'll point you to scripture that says otherwise every single time. Mm-hmm. And we can have that debate on this podcast if you want. Just hit up Tasha Joe.
Yeah.
And we can have it on this podcast. But I will say this. Jesus came to get rid of religion. right?
Yes,
We see
thank
all
you.
these people out here,
Thank you.
and Jesus came so that the religious factor of life is abolished,
Yeah.
right? He came because he was tired of seeing these pastors and these religious people who were stuck on rules.
Religion has caused a divide.
Massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
And Austin and I were actually in the lobby last night after we hit up the arcade, and we were sitting there talking, and I will tell you, you know how much I reference The Shack, and nobody has ever been like, oh, I've seen that. Austin was like, oh my God, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we were talking about it for like an hour.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
no joke, because I tell people, if I run into people and they have zero understanding, like biblical reference of like, who is God, right? They think it's some old
You tell them
man.
to watch The Shack.
100%.
Yes, me too.
100%.
There's a book, there's a movie.
Yeah, and it's great. And it's
yeah.
great because, and it's controversial, but I love it
Yes,
because I
me
love
too.
because Jesus was controversial.
Yeah.
God is controversial.
Yeah.
Old Testament, New Testament, it's all controversial. It's filled with stories and things that have happened that are completely and totally against the current of culture.
And that's what I was telling you last night also, which you still need to watch, but there's a documentary. I think it's called Following the Shack or something, about the author who wrote the book, and he explains it to a T. So you're definitely going to need to watch that.
Yes,
because
and
it's
I'm
so
going to
good.
watch it.
My mom cried.
We
It
had
was so good.
we had so many like books and movies that we talked about last night.
And
like,
I
holy
love
shit,
that.
dude.
Like, I thrive off that. Like, I'm somebody who craves depth out of people. And so I can't do surface level conversations. But when we're sitting there talking and recommending audibles and movie, I'm like, oh my God, like, I love that so much.
Yeah, and I could go on for hours and hours, because Tasha and I were talking, and I'm just like, when she invited me on the show, on the podcast, I'm just like, thank the Lord Jesus. I've been waiting to let all this stuff out.
I don't know if I mentioned this on part 1, but did I mention it on air, how I manifested you?
I don't know.
Reaching
You can
out
tell
to
it
me?
again.
Okay, so I ran into Austin at RJ's fight, and we talked. I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to have you as a guest on the podcast. And then I texted my neighbor, RJ. Shout out to RJ Hoyt.
RJ
who
Hoyt.
fucking
RJ.
won.
RJ Heat Hoyt, who knocked his last opponent out in like a minute. He's a savage. I love you, RJ.
Which
that's
also,
my brother
he's
right
my
there, by the way.
next door neighbor. So we live literally like a foot apart. But I texted him. I'm like, hey, do you have Austin Nebaker's phone number? He's like, I don't know who that is. And I should have said Austin Collins. But then the next morning, Austin calls me. So that is another example of manifesting. When you put that emotion, I always tell people manifesting isn't just the words you're speaking. It's the feeling behind the affirmation that you're speaking. So it's all vibrations. I was like, I want Austin on a podcast. And then the next morning, I shit you not, he calls me, and here we are. So
yeah, here we are. And so Tasha, just to contrast a little bit, and I'm all about the vibrations.
Yeah.
I'm all about the manifestation, right? So as a Christian, you guys listening out there, the only difference it's the same thing that Tasha's saying. Yeah. But we would call that. He
says God, I say the universe.
Yeah. You would call it either prayer or meditation.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Right? And she says manifestation. It's the same thing.
Same thing.
Right?
Same
But us as
thing.
believers, I would just say, hey, Lord, you know what? I really want to be on this podcast. And even if I don't.
Or I'm like, hey, universe, I'd really like Austin on this podcast. Yeah.
But even if I don't, we as believers understand that God sees our hearts.
Yes.
Right.
And divine timing. Everything is
100%.
orchestrated as exactly as it should be.
Yeah.
So you have to surrender. I always say too, I don't chase, I attract. You set the intention and put your manifestation or prayer out there, and then you surrender. You don't keep chasing it down, and then boom, it happens.
Yeah, and in order to do that, what do we have to set aside? Our egos.
Yes,
and
thank
our
you.
pride.
Fuck
right?
the ego.
Yeah, and the ego and the pride that we have as human beings is the death.
Yeah.
That's
well,
death.
it's all, I teach people all the time. We're programmed since we were little, and it's not about, oh, I need to learn this, this, and this. It's unlearning everything you've been taught.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could unlearn so many things.
Right? But you are, and we are, like, daily, you know?
Yeah, it sucks that we're freaking old geezers now, Tasha Joe.
We are not old geezers.
Okay, we're not. We're actually pretty good looking.
We're almost 40, and literally, remember yesterday, I was like, most people think I'm like 28, and then we were walking around Bremerton last night. I'm like, oh, how old do you think I am? And remember?
Yeah, she's like 28,
and
we
I
started
said, see,
laughing.
Austin, told you.
Yeah, which,
I
by
love
the way,
it.
By the way, I love experiences like that.
Yeah.
Like there's like I look back on life and all my best life experiences, it's first of all, it's sharing it with other
Yeah.
individuals. It's not
Like you were saying
self-centered.
earlier, connections,
Big
relationships,
time.
friendships. Yeah.
Big time. And so I guess I'll swing it back
Yeah.
around. So which is a perfect tie-in because at the mission house, we learned how to live with one another, but you learn how to pray for one another.
Yes.
You learn how to pray for somebody else's wife and kids and family because every morning we would pray together.
Yeah.
And you would hear these men crying, praying for their kids and their wives or their moms or their dads or their sisters or their best friends or their friends of friends. And then you have a prayer wall at the house.
Yes.
And it's got 30 names on it. And we're going through the names, praying for all these people. And sometimes it's tough because prayers don't get answered right away.
Yeah.
And timing can be a son
Doesn't
of
mean
a
that they're
bitch.
not heard though.
At
It's
all.
just everything comes to you when it's meant to.
100%.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I will freaking tell you what, Tasha Joe, when it does happen,
Oh yeah.
whether it's 2, 4, 6, 8 days, months, weeks, years later, and you remember praying for that person or that
Yes.
situation
Yes.
or whatever it may be. And I'll pause there because Tasha and I were talking before this podcast and I said, Tasha Joe, I'm going and I'm taking my nephew to Maui,
Yes.
or excuse me, Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yeah.
And he just got accepted into the University of Hawaii Hilo. Shout out Jaden Smelser, my nephew.
Yeah.
He's a stud, by the way.
And he was like, I've spent so much money on my nephew. I was like, you're Uncle of the Year. Hey, spend that money here at Mystic Movement.
I have.
And then he did. He bought raffles, booked appointments. And,
Yeah. And my nephew is so important to me because, like, I remember when he was born. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And he wrote me this letter because I'm going through this divorce situation and I have to get character reference to the judge.
Yeah.
He wanted some character references. And I asked my nephew, I should have brought it and read it. It would
Yeah.
make you cry.
Oh.
He's like, my Uncle Austin. My Uncle Austin's the best. Right. And
Part 3.
Yeah. Right. But I got this character reference from my nephew. And it
Yeah.
was just the most heartfelt, warm letter that any uncle, like if you're an uncle out there and you have a nephew and he's 18 years old and he's about to graduate and go to college and you need a character reference, imagine the best possible letter that you could get. And that's what he wrote.
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, it was awesome. So with that being said, we learned how to basically pray together,
Yeah.
live together, sleep not together,
Yeah. I get what you're saying though.
but near each other,
Yeah.
right? And make lunch together, work together, sweat together, bleed together, cry together. As men, that's a tough thing to
You
do.
really learned about relationships.
Big time.
Yeah.
And I remember asking the director, Godwin, who is a mentor of mine to this day, and you couldn't ask for a better spiritual leader in your life than this man. He's from Tanzania, which is Eastern Africa.
Okay.
And he grew up there, so he speaks like 5 languages.
Wow.
He's a
So
freaking,
cool.
He's freaking savage, and he's a handsome black tall man, and he's got a African accent. I'm just like, dude, you're such a stud,
Yeah.
bro. And then he teaches Bible study, and I'm just like, and he's been married for a long time, faithful, beautiful marriage.
Yeah.
3 kids. He's got grandkids. One of his kids is about to get married, and I remember asking him getting out of the mission house after Layla's mom had passed away and all this stuff, and I go, Godwin, because he would have one-on-ones with us.
Yeah.
He would have meetings with us and mentor us through, whatever we're going through. And I'm getting ready to graduate, and I remember asking him, I'm like, Godwin, what's up with a wife, dude? Like, that's all I was thinking about.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
as a guy who, like, really was, like, intent on finding someone to marry, because that's one thing I remember as a little kid that
Yeah.
people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I never had an answer,
Yeah.
but I knew this.
You wanted a family.
That's
and-
it.
Yeah.
That's it, Tasha.
Yeah.
All I've ever wanted was a family.
Yeah.
Right? And I
Yeah.
remember telling God this, God, I just want a family, but I want a wife. How do I get a wife? How do I know it's find the right wife? And he goes, I'll never forget this. It was like so profound to me.
Yeah.
And he goes, Austin, you need to learn how to love
Yourself.
yourself.
Yeah.
You need to learn how to love others for who they are as individuals, as a brother or a sister first.
Yeah.
He goes, once you learn how to love as a brother and a sister, then after that, you can start to learn how to love as a man or a wife or courting.
I'm so glad you said that, because when people come to me for relationship advice and they're struggling in their relationship, marriage, I always say direct it back to yourself.
Yeah.
Stop saying, oh, trying to solve the other person or the relationship. You got to do what you got to do for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just like the last couple of days being here, it's like, it's been a really great experience for me, especially the timing in my life right now.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll get to this portion of the story, but, about a month and a half ago, the prior 2 months to that, I was living in a house by myself with my wife, living somewhere else with my daughter. And not that I was making the best decisions, but I was also stuck in this decaying state of depression. And I had never experienced it before because Tasha, you know enough about me to know that I'm energetic.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I'm trying to lift people up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to encourage people.
Yep.
And
we're a lot
what I
alike
do.
in that way. Like, I mean, we've known each other since the 6th grade, but and yes, there was a long gap that, we didn't know what was going on in each other's lives or anything, but I have always known you as always in a good mood. Same with me, always in a good mood and just a cheerful, happy person.
Yeah. And that's why I walked in here. I was like, oh, this is totally where I'm going to be hanging out.
Yes.
Because I just like walked in and I was just like,
you just felt the good vibes.
Oh my gosh. It was so awesome. First of all, I didn't even know this place existed.
I know.
Which is crazy because when people find out about this place, you guys, it's about to get real.
We have lots in store.
Yeah, just some of the stuff, and I won't say it, but some of the stuff that Tasha has planned for this place, you guys.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be legit.
Yeah. And I do have to say, so I just signed up for the Chambers of Commerce, and we do have a huge 5-year anniversary party coming up on November 1st, where we will be doing a ribbon cutting and all that. So I'll give you more info on that and let you guys know as it gets closer. But we would love for everybody to be here because, it's been a wild ride the last 5 years. So.
Yeah, listen, you guys, straight up, I'm just no bullshit. If you guys are at a place in your life, you could be at a wonderful place in your life, or you could be at the lowest place that you've ever
Come
been.
here.
Come here, and I promise you, you will never feel more loved.
Yeah.
Or you'll never walk into like a building or a space and feel like warmth and goodness. Because like you walk into a church sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And you feel judged.
Yeah.
You feel immediately judged. Then again, you walk into other churches.
This is a judgment-free zone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then again, you walk into other churches and you're like, oh my gosh. Just like when I was talking about the mission house, I pulled up and I was just like, oh my gosh. Thank God I'm here.
Yeah.
And then I walked in and I just was welcomed and I was loved and I felt at home.
Yep.
Right? That's how I felt here. But it was you and I think 1 or 2 other people here.
Yeah.
But I walked in, it smelled good. It was clean. It looked good. And I just looking around and I'm seeing all the little different vibes on the wall and how everything is just put together. And I'm going, this place is awesome. And,
Thank you.
And then
It's a magical place.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. And this color scheme is legit.
Thank you. I wanted it to be very
color.
warm and inviting. And I remember when I got it, and I've done this color all 3 locations because this is my 3rd location. But I remember, really green.
Yes,
me too.
It's
me
my
too.
color.
I call it Danny, one of my best friends, which you know.
That's my cousin.
Yes, because your moms are best friends.
Yes.
Yeah, she calls it Gucci green, and so I'm like,
shout out
so,
Danny Stevenson, or is she Danny something else now?
She's still Stevenson.
Okay. Yeah.
Or Eggert.
Yeah, she was Eggert, and then is that
I think
still
it's
a thing?
back to Stevenson.
Okay, yeah, Danny Stevenson. Shout out my cousin Danny.
Yes,
she's
one of my besties. She has
awesome.
a shop, literally 1 block
Base,
up.
right?
Yeah, base. Yeah, and I helped her decorate that place. That was the very first place that I actually helped design and stuff. So
yeah, well, it probably looks really good.
Yeah.
If it's anything as a reflection to this
Thank
place,
you.
for sure. So you guys on the 1st of November.
Yes,
You guys
1st of
better
November, which is
freaking show
also
up.
First Friday, and I know that's a ways
it's a Friday.
out. Yeah,
That's
it's a Friday.
How could it? It couldn't be more perfect.
I know. 5 years. Fuck, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
5 years.
I'm coming up on my 5-year here pretty quick. there,
Really?
Tasha Jo. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yep.
That's
And,
incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think and Tasha and I were communicating, and I was saying, hey, our stories,
Yes.
as far as our businesses, are very alike
Yeah.
because we kind of like took a big chance.
Yeah, and it was and has never been about the money. We were just talking about that before we, got on air, and we love what we do and we love helping people, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's like man, I think that God, the
Yeah.
universe,
Yeah.
people in general, and whether it's a large number, it's a small number, honor the intention of being intentional,
Yes.
right?
I preach that all the time. Intention setting is so important. Daily too. Set the intention for your day.
Yeah, and you have to really do that. And by the way, I'm over here preaching this thing, but like I know very little about it. But here's what I do know, okay? If you're intentional about something, whether consciously or subconsciously, if you're a boss at it, like Tasha Joe over here, it becomes a subconscious thing over time, right? Like
and we're all human. There's days where I'm like, fuck, I teach people this all the time, but yet I'm not living it and implementing it into my life. But, it's just practice.
But I think that's anybody and everybody who does anything.
Yeah.
Especially at high levels.
Yeah.
Like you look at preachers, you look at people, whether they're healers or they're whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And eventually at some point in time, you may hit that rut, or you need to have somebody or others that you can let. There's a story in the Bible, and I'll tell this really quick, and it's Moses, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell this in a way that isn't boring, because it's not a boring story, but it's like, I don't want to get into the details of it because details are important. But Moses is in a war zone, right? And you have the good side and the bad side. And he's got his brother on one side and his cousin on the other side, and they're at war. And God says, hey, Moses, and everybody knows Moses, right?
Yeah.
You might not know anything about the Bible, but you know Moses because he parted the sea, right?
Yep.
He said, Pharaoh, let my people go, right? That's Moses. Yeah. Everybody knows him. So Moses is at war. He's not actually fighting himself, but his people behind him are fighting. And God says, hey, Moses, as long as your arms are lifted up in the air, right? And this is why we need video right now, Tasha Joe, because I have my arms lifted up.
We're getting there.
And as long as your arms are lifted up in the air, as long as you can keep your arms lifted, your side will win the war.
Yeah.
Right? This is, by the way, this is Old Testament, which is, there's a craziness in the Old Testament. God was gnarly, by the way. And I mean, if you've ever, I remember in Sunday school when I was a little kid, we had a competition who could hold their arms up the longest.
Oh my God.
Not because of this story, but just for whatever reason. And I ended up winning, right? But it was like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, 3 minutes, I'm the victor, barely still able to hold my arms up, right?
Yeah.
Moses is over here holding them up for hours.
Wow.
And finally, he can't hold them up anymore. So he gets Aaron and Joshua. And if those names are wrong, I know one of them is at least Aaron or Joshua. I'm sorry, you Bible lovers out there. Don't hate me.
That's okay.
We'll call them Aaron and Joshua for now.
Okay.
One was his cousin, one was his brother.
Okay.
And they come beside him and they hold his arms up for him. And do you think God told Moses, hey, you got to hold your arms up, and thought that Moses was going to be able to hold his arms up? Or did he say, you know what, if the people around him and himself understand that he's just a man, but if he has the people who are close to him that can help him hold his arms up, they'll win. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So they came and they held his arms up for him. And guess who won that mother frickin' battle, Tasha Joe? So with that being said, November 1st, it's a Friday.
Yep.
It couldn't be better. You guys come out here. Come out and show support. See what this place is about. I can promise you. All these little festivals and things that are going on around here, they're all really cool. But this is a place that you will be attached to for the rest of your life. I promise you. And I'm a Jesus Bible guy, you guys. And I'm in a Mystic Healing Center.
Yes, Holistic Healing Center.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm in a Holistic Healing Center. And I'm a Bible guy. I'm a Jesus guy.
And that's okay. And like when you get caught up with all the other episodes, we talk about that a lot. I have had several people who started out here who were very religious. Ooh, I can't touch those crystals. Those tarot cards are evil. And now they are like my spiritual soul sisters, because I always encourage people to seek your own answers, because so many of us just are programmed and go off what we're taught, right? From our parents and our grandparents and whatnot. But when you seek those answers, and again, we have an episode that we talked about the difference between religion and spirituality, and like the shack, religion has caused a divide. It's a set of rules and whatnot, but we all believe in the same thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And you hear more and more pastors
Yeah.
nowadays preaching on
Yeah.
that, saying, you guys, we have a freaking terrible, terrible name.
Yeah.
The Christians have a terrible name. I'll tell this quick story, and I don't know if I said it on here yesterday, I'm sorry. But I was at North Kitsap New Life. Shout out to my boy Matt Perkins, right? Okay, I went to church with Matt and his wife Elisa, and we were out at the North Kitsap campus, and we're at church. And the lead
Is he related to Michael Perkins?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know he's got brothers.
Okay.
Right? He also is a Mission House graduate, and he actually
sounds like what Michael does.
And he founded the North Kitsap Mission House that I went through.
Okay.
And now he's like one of my best friends.
Okay.
And he's one of the guys I was telling you about that we had been talking about doing a podcast, Tasha Joe, for freaking years.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I love it.
Him and I have been forever.
We'll have to bring him on. Yeah.
You would love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love having him on here.
Yes.
He's a great communicator. He preaches at the church, but he's also a normal dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're at church, and the pastor, Brendan, shout out Brendan Cameron, he's awesome. And I just went to one of his parenting classes that him and his wife held, and it was beautiful. It was amazing, and I learned a lot, and it was great. But this was 2 Sundays ago. And he says, he's preaching on this subject.
Yeah.
Spirituality versus religion. And he's talking about how Christianity has such a bad name. Mm-hmm. And he says, me and my wife were out in Seattle, and it's like we were at an event, and we saw one of those guys with the megaphone going, turn or burn, turn or burn. God isn't playing around. He's going to send you to hell if you don't freaking change your ways and repent. Right?
Yeah.
And Brendan, he goes, and I was freaking dying. Right? And he goes, it's kind of hard because he's like, we as Christians, we kind of like, that's like, he's like, the way that he explained it, he goes, that guy who is preaching the turn or burn, he's kind of like the long lost cousin that's an outcast that nobody wants to claim.
Yeah.
But he's still a part of the family. Mm-hmm. He's like, that's what that guy is. And he's like, maybe I shouldn't say that on a microphone in front of hundreds of people. He's like, will I say it on the next service? Probably not.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's the truth. Like, and if you think about it, it's the truth. We have this terrible, like, name for ourselves as Christians because of the past and the things that are in the Bible that are misrepresented horrifically, by the way. But it's what happens is man comes in, and man and pride and ego and I want this and I want this and I want power and I want money and I want women and I want to be in control and all of these things, and you mix that all up in a freaking book that has been around for thousands of years, and you get Christianity, you get religion.
Yeah. Yep.
And it is horrible.
Yeah.
So, okay, we were at the Mission House graduating, christianmingle.com, Tasha Joe.
Yeah.
Have you ever done online dating?
I have. I've done Hinge. I did Tinder for like one night.
How did that work out, Tasha? One night?
No,
Did we land?
No, not one night. I got on Tinder, and at first I was like, this is not my vibe. But I matched with one guy, and he was like 2.5 hours away. And instantly, then I deleted it. And we hung out for probably like a month. I was driving like 2.5 hours away to go see him. And I've actually brought
this
him.
Guy.
Yeah, he was awesome. And I've actually brought him up in previous episodes where he's great. And we're still good friends to this day. But so I did one on Tinder. And then I was on Hinge for a while. And
What's Hinge?
Hinge is another dating site. I tried
this.
Bumble. I didn't like that one either. So Hinge, I actually met a lot of really cool guys. And you know what's funny? So my personality, you know how they have like the fill in the blanks, like, you don't know this about me, ... right?
You sure? Yeah.
So mine was, believe it or not, ... I already know you're going to fall in love with me because I'm awesome. And everybody was like, that sounds cocky. I'm like, but I'm not cocky. I'm confident. And
What was the matches that I got? What does it say?
What do you mean?
I feel bad for you. Do you have them?
What do you mean?
The matches.
Oh, yeah. If you don't know me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yes.
That was it, right?
That's very similar. And everybody was like, that sounds like this. And I've always said, you know what? The right people will know me and my sense of humor, like what I'm saying. And the people who are like, oh God, then they're not my type of people. I'm not worried about what people think. But that actually caught so many people's attention. And I got so many men who were like, yeah, girl, I love your confidence. I love your style. And I went on a lot of dates, and I actually signed
How
up
many
for.
dates would you
Oh
say?
gosh.
Sorry, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
Tasha Joe.
I think I probably went on maybe like 15 different dates.
Damn, son.
Yeah, but the first one freaked
Tasha
me
Joe's
out because
out here.
my mom would always be like, oh my God, Tasha, you scare the shit out of me. Why don't you make them come to you? Why are you going all the way to them? I'm like, well, if I go to them, then I can leave. If they come to me, then I'm stuck.
You got to kick them out.
Yeah, and that proved my point. One guy's car broke down and he was stuck at my house till like 3 a.m. And I was like, oh my God, make him leave.
I would
But
have got him a hotel room.
no,
I've been like, hey, I
mean,
got
he
you a
finally
hotel
got
room
out
right
of
down
there,
the street.
right? But I don't mind driving. I like going and, meeting people, and I'm smart. I'm cautious, but I'm still good friends with like probably, I mean, the ones I was into that we were hanging out and whatnot, I'm still good friends with like 5 of them. We still stay in touch. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I think you might be the only female that I know that
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
Like you guys,
I'm
I've
friends
had
with my exes.
Yes. Like she's like, yeah, I'm this, and that. And I'm friend with this person. And I won't tell her shit, but like, I'm just like, how?
Yeah.
How?
But
How are
it
you?
is a two-way street.
If you know Tasha,
Yeah.
it is a two-way street, but I promise you this.
Yeah.
If
It's
it was,
rare.
If it was any other female,
Yeah.
it might not be a two-way street, Tasha.
That's
Joe.
why I always say girls are fucking crazy.
They
They're
are.
nuts. They're jealous. They're insecure. And I'm not
So
saying.
are men.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I have been down that road where I did have insecurities. I was jealous. I used to fight and whatnot. So I've came a long ways. But, like I was telling you earlier, even with my divorce at first, it was, not very good. But then I was like, listen, we're going to be friends. I love you. You love me. But this just isn't working out. And now me and Brock are still the best of friends, and hoping you'll come on here and do a podcast,
Shout out,
Brock.
Come on, Brock.
But yeah, and I'm still good friends, best of friends with my ex, Dan. I mean, he comes in here. He's in here a couple days a week. We all hang out together. His girlfriend, Naomi, I fucking adore her. She's amazing. So I'm 50-50.
First of all, stop. Let's just stop right there. Did you just hear what she just said? She's best friends with both of her exes and best friends with their significant other.
Definitely.
That is a unicorn and another unicorn riding together on a rainbow with
I
a pot
know
of gold
it's
at the
rare
end.
and it's
It's
different.
very rare.
But that was very important to me. And then, but again, it's not always going to happen that way. Like, I'm not friends with my ex-fiance who I moved to San Diego to be with, but he has 2 kids, which those are practically my kids. I love you, Alyssa, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of their life. She calls me their stepmom. She flies them to see me every summer. I do not have any contact with Eric, and I'm so grateful for that relationship, even though it was short, because I was able to become best friends with his ex-wife to where I can still have a relationship with those kids. I mean, those kids, when I left Eric, I said, you know what? I'm leaving Eric, but I'm not going to put those kids through the trauma of why did Tasha leave us? And I made that choice. And a lot of people gave me shit after that. Like, what are you doing?
What?
That's just weird. Why are you still in contact with the kids? Or even when Brock, my ex-husband, started dating one of my good friends. I mean, I would get messages in my inbox like, what? How could she do that to you? And I'm like, dude, we decided to divorce, and I'm happy for them. And Brock and Shelby, I see them all the time. They live like
out
one street.
Shelby Porter.
Yeah, one street down from me. And, it's a choice. I choose to do things the way I do because life is fucking short. And, there's a person for everybody. And I just think once people remove their egos and the jealousy and all that, like, we're all meant to, be in this together. So, yeah.
For sure. And you guys, I'm over here just going, what the friggity frick is going on
it's not for
around
everybody, but eventually you will get there, in some situations.
But there's some people that are
not mature enough, for sure.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm 50-50.
50-50. So I guess I'll bring it back around.
Yeah.
So because I got sidetracked on wanting to know more about Tasha's personal dating life. I mean, can you blame me though, you
No,
guys?
it's fun.
Come on.
It's fun. And I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide. There is nothing that you couldn't ask me that I wouldn't, like, I own everything.
We got into
I am
some
who I
pretty
am.
deep shit.
Yeah.
Both of us last night.
Yeah.
Off the
And
mic.
so
on
many
the microphone,
people
but
are
also off
afraid,
the
they're shameful, or, they feel guilty, or they're embarrassed. And that's the one thing when I die, I want to feel good, like I am who I say I am, and I don't have all these secrets. And so,
Yeah.
if you're somebody out there who's like, oh God, I don't want anybody to ever find this out about me, ask yourself why and get to that place of being comfortable and confident and owning it. Everybody has a past.
Well, I think that that's, and I won't say any names, but I know somebody very close to me who was very close to me. But and I say this because it's also me. It's
Yeah.
also you. It's
Yeah.
also everybody. You just have more experience
Yeah.
with putting it out there and
Yeah.
understanding how to own it, but
Yeah.
also understanding how to take that, turn it, and use it for good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah.
And I think even as a society, we're learning how to do that better and better every day because we have people like Tasha Joe who have Mystic Movement and they're teaching people how to do that through this podcast.
Well, and I do want to touch on that too. Like I've said this before too. We're all each other's mirrors. We're all teaching each other something. We are reflections of each other. And you have to look, I'm trying to word this right, but when there's somebody or something that disturbs your peace, imagine it being a mirror. It's a reflection of an unhealed part of yourself. And that's when you got to go inwards and ask yourself, why does that disturb your peace and why? You know what I mean?
Which is so like
It's a lot of work, but it's so rewarding.
There's levels
Yeah.
to like maturity, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm level 1. Okay.
I'd give yourself more credit than that. You're more than level
I'm
one.
level 1, you guys. But hey, I'm gonna continue to level up.
Yes.
But
every
I'll tell
day.
you this. What you just said is extremely important as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
because think about that, Tasha, what you just said.
Yeah.
Certain things that certain people affect you a certain way or affect me a certain
Yeah.
way, right? And so, maybe somebody comes up to me and says, hey, Austin, I just murdered your brother. How do I react to that? It depends on who it is, first of
Yeah.
all. It depends on the circumstance. It
Yeah.
depends on this, that, and the third, and whatever else. Hey, Austin, I just slept with your girlfriend, your wife, your whatever. Or if we're talking about the shack,
Yeah.
like,
And
Austin, while you were
forgiveness and-
saving
yeah.
your one daughter, your
Yeah.
other daughter got freaking taken and molested and
Yeah.
killed, right? Likely molested. I think it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
kind of that's
Yeah.
what they think. But it's like, how do you react to that? And so, but if we are, what you're saying is we're a reflection of each other, then the first thing, if you have the wherewithal to do it, if I have the wherewithal, me, Austin Collins, if I have the wherewithal to put myself in my wife's shoes,
Yeah.
in my best friend's shoes, in my brother's shoes, whoever's shoes, with whatever they're going through, whatever maybe they just told me, right? And I can say, if I was in their shoes and I was going through what they went through in that moment of time, or whatever the last 3, 6, 9 months, year, 5 years, what their last marriage looked like, what their parents
Yep.
look like, what their husband looks like, what their whatever. And I'm able to put myself in their shoes before I have a snap reaction on how I feel about them and what they just did to me and how dare they. But I think, Tasha, you're pretty good at that.
I always say respond versus react, but it's our initial reaction to get angry or, so
Yeah.
it takes practice. Yeah.
And you have become very good at it.
I haven't
but
fought with anybody in over 3 years, and I tell everybody
Yes.
there is nothing you can say to me. You can say the meanest, rudest shit to me, and I know it has nothing to do with me. And you can
Oh
sit
my
there and I'm
gosh.
just over here, and I've gotten to that place. And a lot of people, all my healers here say, Tosh, that's your gift. That's your superpower.
It is a superpower. But here's the thing, you guys. If you were to, you're hearing her say that, right? You're like, oh, well, maybe that's bullshit, or maybe this
try
or
me.
that, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But if you walk in here, when we walked around Bremerton, it was
Yeah.
dark, right?
Yep.
Which, by the way, it was majestic.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
was. Last
I
night
love
was
downtown Bremerton. It was fun.
was-
We hit up the arcade and then we walked all around 4th Street. and-
Yeah, but
yeah.
it's walking around with Tasha Joe's a little bit different, you guys. Okay, she's got a little mystic movement in her step, right? So there's things that are happening along this walk that we're having, and just the
conversations.
the conversations and the things that we're doing and talking about. But they're not, it's not something that she's necessarily saying all the time.
Yeah.
It's within her personality. It's something that she has like cultivated within herself, and it's very noticeable.
Thank you.
It's very noticeable because you immediately, and I'm reading this letter that was written, or this poem that was written by a young man.
Oh, one of my regulars had written this sweet song about me, and I said, "Oh, hey, Austin, read this." Yeah.
And I read it, and I'm going, well, he kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't know if I have enough balls to do something like that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I would need to have a few drinks in order to do something like that more so.
Yeah.
But as I'm speaking here, I'm looking up at what do you call that board?
My
up there?
vision board.
She has a vision board, and she was doing Tasha Joe stuff, which is a million things at once. And so I'm over like just snooping around her office looking at stuff. And I'm looking up at her vision board, and I'm going, holy crap, like how cool is this? This is something that a teacher who really cares about her students would ask her students to do for the better of their lives.
I did a whole episode on how to create a vision board.
Well, freaking, I need to listen to it.
It's
you know,
good.
because holy smokes. But it's like half of the stuff on there, or maybe even more so, she's done.
Yeah.
And I'm looking up on that board, and I'm like, oh, you want to do this, you want to do this, and you want to do this. These are really good goals, Tasha. And she's like, no, I actually did those. And I was like, what? You did this, and you did that, and you did that. And she's like, yeah, and this, and this, and this, and I had this. And she told me some stories about it, and it's super inspiring. And the point that I'm trying to make with all this, I'm not just blabbing, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is that if we can set our ego aside, and we can set our pride aside, and we can put ourselves in other people's shoes and actually care more about the relationship and the person rather than our own interests, that's where love is cultivated.
Yep.
And when love is cultivated, I'm not talking about love.
Romantic.
Yeah. I'm not talking, I mean, it can happen. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about agape.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about love that has no bounds. Right? And it is love for no reason, specifically other than love itself, which me being a Jesus guy, that's the love that Jesus came and died on the cross for.
That's the whole goal with life, is getting to that state of, you know, it's like we live in the third dimension, which is ego and shame and guilt and fear, but ascending to the fifth dimension, which is just love and peace and harmony and, you know, no judgment.
Yeah. And that's for some people, including myself, that's a hard place to get sometime, especially if you're homeless sleeping under the lion on 6th Street.
But Austin, look at you. I mean, you've been there. You have been at like the lowest.
Absolute lowest.
And look at where you are now.
Yeah. And
not a lot of people can pull themselves out of it, but I say this all the time. We all have a choice.
We do.
And you chose to get out of that situation.
Yeah, and I will say this too. There's been choices between then and now that weren't always the best. I've made
for all of us.
Yeah, I've made mistakes.
I still make bad choices.
Every freaking day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you are right. And I look back on that and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah.
And at night, even during the day, I just sometimes today, I think I sent you a video. I don't know that it went through though, but today was my nephew's graduation cruise. And what it is they get a vehicle. They dial it all in with orange and black. Shout out Central Kitsap Cougars.
Oh, you did send me that hanging out of the sunroof?
Yeah. And my nephew, he's very, very withdrawn. He's not somebody who puts himself out there like that.
Shy.
So seeing him smile with his phone out, sitting on the top of my truck with people that are holding signs with his name on it and throwing candy at him.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just going, oh my gosh, it's just like, it made me feel so good. And it made me feel good that I was able to be there because my brother wanted to be there so bad.
But you were able to be there for him.
I was able to be there for him. And my brother had some stuff going on that is just like, you have to take care of it at that point. And he, you know, I got home and he's like, dude, I love you, bro.
Yeah.
You know, I love you. Thank you so much. Gave me a hug, tells me, thank you so much for doing that. You know how bad I wanted to be there. But you know what? Who better to be there outside of me than Uncle Austin?
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm taking him on this cruise, right? And he has this opportunity to just be like free.
Yeah.
And it's his last opportunity, one of his last opportunities where he's going to see all these people ever again. And Tasha, I don't know if you remember being a senior.
I don't really remember high school.
I know. We were talking about stories last night. I do so much
inner child work and remembering, you know, junior high, high school, but it's all a blur to me. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember my incident when I was 17 when I OD'd.
On?
Tylenol.
I remember.
You do?
I do.
Okay, so and we'll have to talk about this. I mean, I've brought it up on a podcast episode, but that incident from before then, I don't remember. So I took a bottle of 80 Tylenol and I almost died. I was in the hospital. They told my
Were
family.
you drinking at all?
No, no, no.
This was stone cold sober?
Yeah.
You guys.
I just took a whole bottle of Tylenol and slept overnight. And then the next morning, I wrote 80 on the inside of the bottle. I don't remember why I did. I don't remember anything. And the next morning, call it Mother's Intuition, she comes in and she's like, Tasha, why aren't you going to school? And she's like, tell me what's going on. I pointed and she was like, I'll be right back. Called 911. They tried pumping my stomach, nothing, but my liver was shot. 80 Tylenol in my system overnight.
That'll kill your liver.
And so I remember, the only thing I remember is laying in the hospital bed and looking over at my mom, dad, and sister and the doctor, and they all start crying. And, my parents had told me, yeah, the doctor came over and said, you need to say goodbye. She's not going to make it. And then out of nowhere, a miracle happened. And so all these years since I started my spiritual journey, I've been seeing healers and just like, why don't I remember? Da, 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 da. And I never told anybody about that incident, any of the healers. And one of them had said, that's weird. I see you in a hospital bed instantly. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what she's talking about. She goes, interesting. There's this light being standing right next to you. And it's Saint Michael.
Tell me more.
It's Archangel Michael.
Oh,
and she goes,
that's my guy, by the way.
Oh, Archangel Michael. Yes, he's mine too. And he went inside my body. And she goes, that's weird. I've never seen anything like that before. And so I have been doing these appointments and everything, trying to dig into, like what happened? Am I still me? Is that why I don't remember anything before that? So I don't remember junior high, and I'm still actively like trying to dig in there, but I don't remember junior. I mean, I remember playing volleyball. I remember some things, but I don't remember a lot of it.
So do you want to hear some really cool shit
Yeah,
right now?
yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you guys, Archangel Michael, first of all, he cast Satan out of heaven.
Okay.
Because Satan was an angel. His name was Lucifer. Right? We all have heard Lucifer. You hear rappers say Lucy.
Yeah.
Right? They're talking about Lucifer, the devil.
Yeah.
But Lucifer was the most beautiful angel. Right? He was the most beautiful angel, and he was a musician. He could play the most beautiful music that the mind could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But what happened is Lucifer thought that he could get to God's level. He's like, why can I not be like God? Like, I'm beautiful. I play this beautiful music. Like, I'm the shit. I should be like God.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't sit so well with the creator who made him.
Yeah.
He's like,
okay.
bro, I kind of like made you specifically for a purpose, you know? But, and meanwhile, Gabriel and Michael are over here just doing the damn thing.
Yeah.
So Lucifer gets cast out of heaven and into hell. And there's a couple times that things like this happen, right? And then you get into Revelation, which is the like way later on down the road.
Yeah.
Which is a prophecy, right, of what's going to happen to Satan. And Michael goes down and whoops his ass. And then in the New Testament, Jesus dies, goes to the cross, dies, resurrect. But when he dies, he goes down to hell and he snatches those keys from Lucifer, from Satan. He snatches the keys to the kingdom of hell. Okay. And he says, you don't get to hold my people here anymore. You don't have power over them anymore. And that's what Jesus did. He went down to hell. He grabbed those keys and he said, peace out, bro. I run this. This is me. And then he resurrects, right? And then he goes back to heaven. And so.
I did not know that.
Yes. And so, but Michael, so a big. One of the scriptures that a lot of people hear about, whether you're a Christian or not, but you hear about the armor of God.
Yeah.
You hear about the breastplate of righteousness and the helmet and the sandals and the, and the gauntlet and the gloves and the this and the that and the sword of truth, which is the sword of truth, which is the word of God. But I think people get confused sometimes. I think people think the word of God is just something that is read out of a book, right? The Bible.
Yeah.
But I think the word of God is also truth in itself. And Jesus in the Bible says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes to the Father except through me. But what he's talking about is he's saying, nobody can go down to hell and snatch the keys from Lucifer except for me, and I'm about to go do that. So in order to get to heaven, you guys got to go through me. And guess who wields that sword of truth, right? But last night, in the sword of truth, getting back to that, is not just the Bible. It's not just
Yeah.
Jesus, right?
Yeah.
It is in John chapter 17. It's called the high priestly prayer, and I wish I could read it, but
Yeah.
it's my favorite chapter in the Bible. And the reason why is all it is it is Jesus before he goes and dies on the cross. He has his disciples around him, and he is praying to God out loud. Jesus does not need to pray out loud to talk to his dad,
Yeah.
you guys. Like,
Yeah.
he can just talk to him.
Yeah.
Like, they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, they're all the Trinity. They're all together. They know what they're thinking. They move, all that stuff. But he's praying out loud, and he's praying this prayer, and the gist of the prayer, and I'll paraphrase, is this: God, you see my people here. You see my disciples. They are set aside. I've chosen them, right? But he's not just talking about his disciples, because he's talking about the disciples. He's talking about the people they're going to disciple, and so on and so forth, all the way down to the people that we are here right now talking about, right? And that sword that I'm talking about, the sword of truth, and it says, put on the full armor of God so that when the devil shows up, that you won't get your ass whooped. That's basically what the Bible verse says, right? The sword of truth isn't just the word of God itself, in my belief, right? I believe it's us speaking the truth, right? Well, last night, ladies and gentlemen, Tasha Joe pulled out some tarot cards.
Oh, yep.
And the two cards she pulled out, one of them was a woman who was holding a sword with a sunbreak behind it.
Yeah.
And it was all light. And the other was the same. It was a man with this, I think he was praying or had a book in front of him, and it was all sunlight behind him. And then I won't get into the rest of it, but like immediately my mind goes to the Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
Right? And the Archangel Michael, he was tasked with seeing over all of Israel and protecting all of Israel, as there was all sorts of stuff going on. But you're bringing up the Archangel Michael, and that's super powerful because the Archangel Michael, he is the lead warrior,
Protector.
the protector of Israel, which, by the way, is us, you guys, right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when you hear biblical reference to Israel that is not a geographical location,
Yeah.
Israel is us. We are Israel. We are the people of Israel, because after Jesus came, Israel was no longer just Hebrews. It was no longer just Jewish people.
Yeah.
It was Jewish people and Gentiles. So first to the Jews and then the Gentiles. The Jewish people were Hebrews, right? Moses set my people free. They're in Egypt, and they got freaking whipped and chained, and they were slaves, and Moses led them out, and those were Hebrews. And then Jesus came for the Gentiles, for us, people who were not born of or out of the lineage of the Hebrew, but were pagans who believed in this, that, the third, whatever. But that's what Jesus came for.
Yeah.
And then in the high priestly prayer, he says, he has adopted us into his kingdom. We are now brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah.
We are the same. So in the Bible, it says there's God, and at the right hand of God the Father is the Son, Jesus, who is resurrected, and he's there. And Jesus says, it ain't just me anymore. It's all of my adopted brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And I get to call that shot because I went down to hell and I stole the keys, and now I'm the shot caller. And God will tell you I'm the shot caller. And here's all of my brothers and sisters with me, and they're sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that, like verbatim says that. And so when you're talking about Michael came into you, and there was probably a spiritual battle that took place there, Tasha Joe.
Yeah.
And that's super powerful.
Yeah.
But like there's a biblical
Yeah.
reference there that I wanted to share with you.
Yeah,
So-
no, I appreciate that so much because, like I've had so many questions and just digging in, like what happened. And yeah, no, thank you for that so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want you to finish your story though, because you were talking about, you had that incident, and then you were in the hospital, and there was light, and you were seeing a healer. Was it?
So this is years later, because this happened
Okay.
when I was 17 years old.
Right.
So in the last 4.5 years, I've been, doing several sessions with healers and practitioners and whatnot, and just asking like, hey, why don't I remember? And then these things would come up.
Right.
And then there was one other. So that happened maybe like 2 years ago. But then have you ever
whoa, that's
seen the
pretty
show? Yeah, maybe it was 3 years. Well, yeah, maybe
Still,
2 or
even
3. Yeah.
within the last few years.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the show on Netflix, Wednesday?
Where is Wednesday or Wednesday?
No,
the
it's
Addams
called,
Family?
yeah, Wednesday.
I never saw it, but I know what it is.
Okay, it's really good, but I think it was one of the last episodes where, I forgot about all my appointments, whatnot, and I'm watching this episode.
Wait,
and
you forgot about all your appointments?
Well, no, I forgot. Like, I wasn't trying to dig in or worry about my childhood. I'm just watching a TV show at this point.
Okay, gotcha.
And I'm watching this episode, and the girl, she's dying. And then her angel or spirit guide shows up, like, right next to her, and she says, okay, if I do this, you're never going to see me again. And I'm just watching. It's just, like a Wednesday, like a Tuesday, Wednesday during the week.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, she goes into her body. My whole body is fucking vibrating, and I have tears running down my cheeks.
Gosh.
And I didn't even need to, I'm like, what the hell? But that to me was confirmation, because over the years, I'm like, what happened to me? Did that happen to me when I went to that one healer who had said, Archangel Michael went into you and, saved you.
Yeah.
And so that to me was confirmation. Yes, that's exactly what happened. And now to this day, that is my confirmation when like I host my circles and we all go in the circle and share and people say things. And when it rings true, my whole body vibrates. I get this like tingling sensation. So I am a human lie detector. I know when there's truth being said. And so, yeah, there's been several different things, but yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not over here spitting lies because Tasha beep, beep, beep,
I'd be like,
beep, 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 beep.
oh my gosh. Okay. So anyways, back to you.
Yeah, we'll bring it back. And so we'll get back to the Christian mingle because that's, I think, where we left off at. So I meet this gal, Christian mingle. She's beautiful. She's like, okay, you guys, let me just, Tasha, I showed you pictures, right?
Of her?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
You didn't? You didn't see pictures?
No. I haven't.
Okay. So, you guys, I'll show you after. Do you want to see right now?
Yeah, I want to see her right now.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry, my phone just went off, and I text my whole family like, "Hey, are you guys coming this Friday?" And my dad just said, "I'm planning on coming by to support you and tell you how much I love you. Maybe eat a taco or two." Yay, my family's coming. I'm super excited.
We love tacos.
Yes.
We absolutely love tacos. I love tacos anyway.
Oh, and you got to try these tacos. They're the shit.
What's so special about these
The
tacos,
sauce.
Tasha Joe?
The special sauce.
The sauce.
Yeah, Derek, they make their own sauce, and they sell out every first Friday. And yeah, so this Friday, 5 to 9 p.m., definitely come by because it is going to be incredible.
Yeah, what is the event called?
It's just a like beginning of summer bash event, and I love entertaining and hosting events. This is...
That's my
mom.
mom.
She's beautiful. I know that's your mom on the right.
My mom.
Oh my gosh, Austin, she's gorgeous.
Yeah, you can scroll through while I'm talking.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of
she's
pictures
gorgeous.
in there. You can kind of, if you want to back out and you can see like all the pictures.
Yeah.
Feel free to snoop around, Tasha Joe.
She's beautiful.
So I meet this gal who's like everything, like as a guy
that you've ever wanted.
for sure.
Yeah.
Right. You look at whatever a guy thinks is beautiful in a woman. And,
Yeah.
And this is
She checked all your boxes.
all the boxes
Yeah.
got checked, right? She goes to the gym. She's a Christian. Her family's amazing. Even to this day, I still love her family tremendously. And they, like, you think of parents who are just like forgiving and encouraging and like pillars,
Yeah.
right? Those are her parents. They're just
Aw.
amazing people. And her brother, amazing. He's like this gentle giant. He's like 6'6", like 240. He's like a big bear, but he's an amazing guy. He's a pilot. Shout out pilot Brad. And their family's just amazing, right? And so I meet this woman on the Christian Mingle. And when I created my account on Christian Mingle, I put like a 250-mile like barrier.
We're about an hour, so yeah.
Okay.
We're doing good.
I put about a 250 mile, like,
Yeah.
distance. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm willing to maybe travel to Oregon or Idaho.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she sends me a message because I had long hair.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull it up while we're talking.
Okay.
I had long hair at the time and I had just cut it. So I was feeling myself, Tasha Joe. and so I'm thinking to myself, oh, Canada, because she's from Canada.
Okay.
So I'm thinking BC, like I might have to go across the border. Luckily, I'm not a felon and I don't have any adult
Yeah.
DUIs.
Yeah.
Even though I did get a DUI when I was 16.
And by the way, I do just need to say, so I travel the world and I go to a lot of cool places,
Yes.
but I had never been to Canada because I was a felon for 5 years.
Oh my
But
gosh.
just last month, me and Vito went to Canada for the weekend.
Yes.
And I was always told that you couldn't go to Canada if you're a felon, right?
Yes.
But when we crossed the border, they literally just checked our ID and then we got through.
You got lucky.
Okay. I mean, they asked us a ton of questions, but they didn't like pull a
felt
report or
they felt the
anything.
Mystic Movement vibe,
Oh
and they're
my
like, "We gotta
God.
let this girl through." So there's Austin Collins with long hair.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. My ex-husband did the man bun for a while too,
Yeah.
and a bunch of my guy friends have done it. I like it.
So I had the long hair and the beard, and I was
Yeah.
rocking the vibe for a while,
Yeah.
and then I cut it.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm feeling real nice. I got the nice short hair back again. I'm about to post this on the Christian Mingle. And this beautiful woman messages me or likes one of my photos, and it's
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't on that app for more than like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like maybe a week or two. And apparently she had been on for a minute, I think, and she was about to give up. And actually her brother was the one that told her to get on it. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, Canada, probably BC, but and I didn't know this at the time, but on her profile, she had put 0 restraints. And later on, I remember talking to her and she goes, yeah, I just figured that if God had the right man for me, that it wouldn't matter how far away he was.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's pretty freaking sweet. Like, I wish I had that much
Yeah.
faith at the time. I'm like, damn, I kind of felt like I was like, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But she was 1,200 miles away, Tasha,
wow.
Joe. She was in Saskatchewan at the time, and their family's in Manitoba now. But in Saskatchewan, which is if you go to Montana in like, what would be to the east of Montana? Would
Oh
it
gosh,
be-
I don't know east from south, north, all that.
Oh my gosh, Minnesota.
Okay.
Minnesota, Montana, that area, you go north from there,
Uh-huh.
and that's where they lived at.
Okay.
So we're talking negative 31 degrees in the winter, Tasha Joe. You walk outside from the airport and your eyebrows and eyelids are sewn shut from cold weather. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Your nose hairs are frozen shut. The corners of your mouths, so there's frozen there. Like you can't even open up your eyes. You have to keep wiping your eyes or else they'll be shut.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, how's this gonna work? Meanwhile, I'm living in a freaking bedroom half the size of this room at the mission house. I'm making like $1,000 a month, Tasha Joe.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm looking at this beautiful Amazonian, gorgeous looking woman going, all right, how do I have to,
What do I need to do?
I better have some freaking game
Yeah,
to land
yeah.
this, right? But I didn't.
Yeah.
I was just honest.
You were just you.
I was just honest about my situation. And I won't share. There's some things that I can't share on
Yeah.
here about her life.
Totally.
But she went through some similar things. And I didn't know a whole lot about it at the time. But as we started dating and I flew up there first. Mm-hmm. And then I stayed up there for like an extended weekend. I stayed in her apartment and she went and stayed at her parents' house. And then she would just come over every day to her apartment.
Yeah.
And to have enough trust,
Yeah.
we had only known each other for like 3 months
Yeah.
and FaceTiming 3 months.
Yeah.
But there
Before
was-
you met?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Before I flew up to
Good.
Canada and
That's
lived
how it should be. Get to know people.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't really have a choice because
Yeah.
we were so far away.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been, if she would have invited me up there that day, I would have been like, okay, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we had a lot of time. And because of my job at the time and what I was doing with ministry and things like that, we were able to FaceTime a lot.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of fun times FaceTiming and things like that. And then eventually I went back up there again. She came back down and stayed for a week and we got her I think she actually paid for it because I like wasn't making very much money at the time. But she got a Airbnb for a week, you know.
Yeah.
And I was able to introduce her to my friends, family, blah, blah, blah. And that's when that picture was taken.
Okay.
That I just showed you, right?
Okay.
So we do that for a while. And then finally I'm like, we're talking. And I'm like, hey, I got to like, our marriage was weird because I knew I had to ask her parents to marry her.
Yeah.
But we had been talking about marriage so much that like the element of surprise was like not in the picture anymore.
Yeah.
And I really regret that.
Yeah.
Because at this point in time, being, you know, 36, almost 37 years old, I look back and I go, there's some things that I wish I would have done different.
Yeah.
I wish I would have given her a bigger wedding. I wish I would have actually proposed, other than a quick proposal, will you marry me, or here's a ring, you know, let's go have dinner, whatever. I wish I would have just like made it more extravagant, made it more, you know, rememberable. And I think that every woman, regardless of what you females say out there, I think every woman wants to feel special.
Yeah.
And I think I fell short in some of those areas, and I regret that. You
But
know,
it was exactly how it should have been at that time.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And one of those things was me saying, hey, I got to come up there and ask your parents to marry you. Like, how are we going to make this work?
Yeah.
Well, there was a wedding. Her cousin was getting married. So I flew up for the wedding, and I was staying in a hotel room, and I go in I was staying in one hotel room. They were staying in another hotel room. And I remember her brother, her brother's wife, her brother's kids, who are young at the time, her dad, her mom, are all in this hotel room.
Yeah.
And I'm about to, like, we're in the other hotel room talking, and I'm like, okay, I think this is the only chance we're going to get. And I'm so nervous, Tasha, because I got to go in there in front of her whole family. I wasn't planning on her whole family and kids being in the room, you know, and I go in there and we're talking, and she's just got the look of death on her face. She's like, I can't believe this is about to happen. And I can't believe it's about to happen. I got to do this, right? I got to man up and freaking do this thing. You guys, if you marry somebody, do your best to find someone who is very close to them in their life, if their dad isn't around or their mom isn't around, and make it special and talk to them and build a relationship with them and actually truly get to know them and make it special, not just for them, but for their family. So they know the intention that you have for them, because it's super important. And so I go into this room, and I'm sitting on like by the window where there's like a little, you know, window bench thing. Yeah. And then there's 2 queen beds, and there's like 8 people, and they're all bunched together like it's Christmas, right? Yeah. And I got to figure out how to bring up, oh, hey, by the way, and so can I marry you guys' daughter? Like, how am I supposed to segue into this conversation, Tasha Joe? And so I'm thinking, okay. So we're talking, and I think that like she said something to them so they knew it was coming. So it made it even more weird. And so there's just this weirdness elephant just trotting around in the room, shaking the room up. And so finally I'm like, hey, you guys, you know, I love your daughter, you know, and I remember addressing each one of them. I addressed her dad, I addressed her mom, I addressed her brother. And then I asked them, hey, you know, I want to marry her, you know, pretty much, what do you guys think? Do you guys have any questions? And the only one that said anything was her older brother. And her older brother, and I could just see her dad and her mom were kind of like, you know, whispering back and forth a little bit, not saying too much. And I think they were counting on Brad, you know, kind of leading that discussion. And Brad looks at me and he goes, I got a question for you. How do you know that she's the one? I
Good
said,
brother right there.
Yeah. And I said, I don't think she's the one.
I know she's the one.
No, not even that.
Oh, okay.
That would have been a good line. I wish I would have. I know it, brother.
Yeah.
I said, I think that I don't think that she's the one. I think that whoever you're intentional on marrying with work is the one. Yeah. So I don't think that there's necessarily just, hey, in the world somewhere, there's one person that you're meant to be the rest of your life with. Yes and no, right? It's yes and no.
I always say some people are meant to be in our life, even if it's just for a season, but it's always for a reason.
Big time. And so I said, I think that the one is who you make the one. Yeah. And that's what I said, and I meant it. Yeah. And I didn't plan on saying that. Yeah. But I just remember what Godwin told me, and it goes back to like, hey, learning how to love somebody for
Yeah.
who they are as a person,
Yeah.
instead of trying to skip
Change
that
them
step.
or
Yeah,
yeah.
instead of trying to skip that step and go right to the
Or the potential of them.
exactly,
Yeah.
which was really hard with her because look at,
Yeah,
it's like
she's gorgeous.
I'm like, how do I
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
And so they say yes. I go back home and I ask my buddy Travis, shout out Travis, Sandvik Builders, Decon Environmental, right? And I asked Travis if I can marry her in his living room. This woman deserves much more than a living room, freaking wedding, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
She deserves a big, extravagant, beautiful wedding where everybody's looking at her and the whole day
And you
is
wanted
about
to
her.
give her all that, but she just wanted you, probably.
Yeah, I think we both kind of just were like, she actually had just gotten out of another marriage.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I was so ready to be married and like past the point of like
something you were wanting since you were little.
Young adult
Yeah.
Austin that had so much, you could call it tragedy, but so much life experience that would have been considered like really tough.
Yeah.
I was ready to move forward with my life in a positive manner. Mm-hmm. And we kind of provided that for each other. And I think in a way, she was looking to get out of the situation that she was in her life. And even though all she had known was that small town in Canada her whole life. So when she did eventually come here, it was really hard for her because she's so used to being around her family. Yeah. Right. And that can be really hard on somebody. Yeah. And anyway, so I'm at the mission house and I'm like, hey, I can't live here with a woman, let alone a woman that looks like that, with 10 other dudes who are recovering drug addicts. Yeah. Like, I couldn't even bring her around there, Tasha. Yeah. Because
you
it's
wanted
like,
to protect her.
And I did bring her there twice. And both times it was like, oh man, we got to get out of here. I had one of the guys that was in the house when I was the house manager, like, and when she came up to visit one of the times and she showed up and she, by the way, and I really want to respect her privacy. Yeah, absolutely. Because we're going through some stuff right now, but she was very conservative. And I'm not just talking about like Trump 2024, right? Yeah. America, conservative. Yeah. Guns and freaking religion and freaking no abortion and all. I'm not talking about that. Yeah. Right. I'm talking about she was conservative as in she wasn't a girl who was posting gym pics on Facebook. She wasn't putting it out there that she was this hottie with a body who was trying to get naughty, Tasha Joe. Yeah. We see a lot of that around here and it's tough.
A lot of people seeking that attention and whatnot. And that's one thing my ex, Stan, would always say that he loved about me because he would date these girls who were just, I'm not even going to use that word, but I'll just bring it back to, he's like, Tosh, that's what I love about you. You are classy and conservative. And I'm not going around my tits out. I'm like the couple times you've seen me, high neck,
sweatshirt and
leggings. And I just, I carry myself that way. And I'm not somebody who likes the attention on me, nor do I want it, Yeah.
Which is all the more reason that you have this platform. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's the same thing with money. Like my entire life, I grew up broke, super broke, flat broke. Like that was me my whole life, broke. Right. Yeah. And if I wasn't broke, I was barely not broke. And then I spent it all on drugs. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then I decided to do what you did and kind of take a leap of faith, everything that I had known and start this business in the beginning of COVID when everybody was collecting unemployment.
So when did you start? Because I started my business November 2019.
Mine was July.
Oh, wow. So right before me.
Wait. I lied. It was the following July. Okay. So maybe I'm 4 years, not 5.
Okay. So I was November 2019 and then COVID hit, I think February, March. Yeah.
Okay, so...
Because I moved to San Diego March, and then a week later, COVID hit, 2020.
So when you started your business...
November 19.
And then COVID hit and they shut...
March 2020. Shut down.
So mine would have been officially July 2020. Okay. And so, so then I'll be 4 years. Yes. Right? So, but... I had started the business prior to that, but I had officially...
But you launched.
Yes.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
I had got all the dots and the T's and all that stuff. And but
Mine was fast. I mean, I told Brock I wanted a divorce in May
can I
2019.
ask, like,
Yeah.
what made you just all of a sudden I want a divorce? Or do you?
So it was, I mean, we always fought and everything. It started off with the chemistry and just the attraction and
Well,
partying all the time and whatnot.
okay.
And then we dated for 4 years. And then 4 years later, we got
Sheesh.
engaged. And then we were together, married for 4 years. So we were together for 8 years.
Yeah, it's
But
a long time.
yeah, but so we divorced in, well, officially 2020 January, but 19 of May, I told him I wanted a divorce. But a year prior to that is when I lost my brother to suicide. And that's when I started my spiritual journey. And I just started asking myself all the questions. And so it just kind of led down that path of this isn't what I want for my life. I know that I just want to be married to my best friend. And, I love Brock. I have so much respect for him. And again, like you said earlier, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things so differently. But I wanted that person who was just my teammate. And Brock was very intimidated by me. Of course, you know how to do that. You know how to do everything. I've been living on my own since I was 18. I grew up where my dad
I
taught
remember you
me.
being like that in high school.
Yeah, I've always been like that and very outgoing, have guy friends. And that's one thing I'm very thankful for is, with me and Brock, we never dealt with, he accepted that I had a ton of guy friends and there was no jealousy, infidelity, none of that with me and Brock. But oops.
Which is a
But
blessing.
yeah,
It really is.
but very intimidated by me doing projects. And I bought him his first gun and all his tools. And then I'd go to do projects with them. And I wanted a partner who I could do those things with. And he just had, but that was a long time ago too. And, so it was just, I would cry. I remember crying and look out the window and he'd be laughing with his buddies doing these projects. I'm like, I want to be doing that with my partner,
Yeah.
So it just kind of, when I lost my brother, I think that's when I don't know, I just had this awakening, like this isn't the life I'm meant to live. And yeah, I don't know, it just kind of, that's where it started.
That's some transcendent
Yeah.
shit right there,
Yeah.
Tasha Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
But
like,
I will say, I do want to say this. I am not a quitter. And I made myself a promise. I said, if I get divorced, I want to be able to say to myself that I did everything I fucking could. I fought for my marriage. We went to counseling. I moved out and I moved in with Danny for a month. I literally tried everything. And then when I finally said, you know what, it just hit me one day. I couldn't cry anymore. I'm that type of person. I've been like that since I was young. I will keep fighting and fighting and fighting until I get to that point when I'm done. I'm done. I can't even cry anymore. And I couldn't even cry anymore. And I remember it all came at once. My spiritual journey and wanting to quit my job, divorce Brock, sell the house, start my business. My family shunned me hard. I had nobody, like nobody. And they were like, what are you doing? You're selfish. You're going to run a business off crystals. And, I'm so thankful they support me now and they're my biggest supporters. And, they see
shout
that.
out mom and dad.
Yeah, definitely.
I
But
love them, by the way. I have the
Yes.
best memories of Tasha's parents ever. And I think
Wendy and Mike.
every person in our high school who ever got the chance to meet them or
Yeah.
be a part of whatever was going on when they were
we
around,
were the party house. and-
everybody
yeah.
loved her parents. Okay, sorry.
They still
continue.
do. I
Yeah.
mean, we have garage parties where still to this day, my mom and her husband and my dad and his girlfriend, we all do holiday functions together. We party together. All my friends come over. We do karaoke in the garage. And I'm so thankful for that. But yeah, it was very hard because when I started my spiritual journey, before I didn't have anything I believed in. I just partied a lot, got in trouble a lot. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I was always in trouble.
That makes two of us, Tasha Joe.
Always in trouble. And I'm like, dear Lord, if I ever have kids, And my parents have always said, Tasha, you have been a troublemaker since you were 2. You're not afraid of anything. You skydive, you bungee jump. Like, you scare the shit out of us. But I live my life that way. And now on my journey, I understand why I am the way I am and why I was the way I was and why I challenged authority. And because, one, I don't like the system. I don't like being told what to do. And when I feel so strongly about something, I want to be heard and not just be told, no, that's wrong or that's not okay.
Yeah,
You know,
and you could tell that you want to
I'm
fight.
very passionate.
You want to fight for because you're a spirited person,
Yeah.
to say the least, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we're walking around Bremerton last night, and the homeless people are coming up, and you're talking to them, and you're stopping, and you're actually caring about them and asking them about themselves, and it's like,
Yeah.
for me, we walked away afterwards, and you're
Yeah.
good with that. Like I don't even have to ask you if that makes you
I
feel
think
well.
one of them, I said, I gave him a crystal and some cash. And I
Yeah.
said, but remember, do not spend this on drugs or whatnot. And karma's a real thing, and be intentional because it will come back for you. Yeah.
And who knows what they did with that
And
money.
that's okay. I just
But
had to say
I will
it.
tell you though, if I was homeless and you handed me that, I would have been like, I would have at the very least thought about it.
Yeah.
At
yeah.
the very least, I would have thought about it. But I want to.
And I know the chances are of them, but I still got to put that out there and hope for the best, you know?
Yeah, but she was also asking for food too.
Yeah.
So if you would have came out with a double,
Yeah.
a McChicken or a
Yeah.
double cheeseburger, she would have been like, "Oh, hey, thanks. Okay, see you guys
Yeah.
later." So
Yeah.
maybe she went right. She kept.
Well, I gave her carrots and hummus, but she didn't have
wasn't
any teeth.
Yeah,
and she's like, I can't chew.
What the hell, dude?
So I gave her a juice box and then, yeah.
Yeah. But she kept mentioning the big gulp. She's like, I'm just trying
yeah.
to get a big gulp. I'm like,
Yeah.
shit. All right. I was gonna tell her, hey, meet me down at 7-Eleven, but then I was like, it was kind of far.
Yeah.
And my truck is just full of stuff right now because
Yeah.
I'm moving and the transitioning through this and that. And okay, but I want to bring it back because there's something really important that you
Yeah.
said that I'm vibing with big time right
Okay,
now.
I know, and then we should probably wrap this one up here soon because we're going on an hour and a half, I think, and then we're gonna have to do so many.
I know.
Oh my goodness,
I'm
yeah, an hour and a half.
sorry,
No, I love this, an hour and a half. So yeah, we'll wrap it up in the next 10 minutes, and then we'll do episodes with specific titles because me and Austin could talk for hours, and I mean we've gone years. So yeah. Anyways, back to you.
And by the way, like both of us are super podcast listeners, book readers,
Yes.
all the stuff, Audible at
Yeah.
night listening to
That's
stuff.
why
So
we
like,
just vibe.
so there's like these cross reference points that we
Mm-hmm.
like connect at, which is really awesome because I have whenever I find somebody that is like even
Me
excited
too.
about one topic,
get
let
so
alone all the
excited.
topics,
We're
I'm
like, oh
holy
my
shit,
God.
holy shit, we can talk about this shit all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I do, and maybe we end on this part.
Okay.
But. And then next podcast, can we get into the work?
We should just come up with like a weekly day and time
I'm down.
like I do with
I'm
somebody
down.
else because there's so many things to talk about. Let's do that
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah, because Rogan he has a couple groups of people that
Yeah.
he has like a subtitle to
Yes.
his podcast
Yeah.
for. I'm down for it.
Okay, let's do it.
So
Let's do it.
but you were talking about you're not a quitter.
Yeah.
Did I tell the story about your ex-boyfriend Rory on this?
Yes, in the
Okay.
beginning of the
And he
part
was
one.
whooping my ass?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So that's me, same
Yeah.
thing. And you
Yeah.
were talking about earlier, we are mirrors of each other,
Yep.
right? You are describing me. And verbatim, the words that I've said to many people over the last 3-4 months of this whole separation situation that I'm going through is that I'm like, I describe the situation and what's going on, and I'm being no holds barred. I'm telling both sides of the story
Yeah.
because I'm not a perfect guy and I'm at fault too, right? But I'm not a quitter either, and I have
Yeah.
a real problem with giving up on things,
Yeah.
especially when it's down in the depths,
Yeah.
right? Because I
Yeah.
kind of see myself in that situation.
That's why I'm dying to pull your birth chart. Austin only knows his sun
I'm
sign.
wondering
and
if my
go
mom
figure,
texted me
he
back.
calls his mom, and I laugh so hard. I'm like, oh my God, you know how many times I've
Mom,
came across that? Like, what dude needs to call his mom and be like, what time was I born? Because I'm dying to know the other placements in your chart because I see a lot of myself in you where you crave that depth. And so, yeah, I'm very curious to pull your chart.
I'm so much still learning
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
And you've helped me understand a lot.
But
just in the last
human
couple days.
design and astrology has taught me so much about why I am the way I am. So I'm excited to get you on board with that because you are a knowledge junkie and you like
I'm
crave
down,
that.
and a lot
Yeah.
of people think that it's like, okay, and then I'll go back to the
Yeah.
non-quitting thing, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
But like, people think that it's like, oh, astrology, oh this, oh that, that's a healing, and they
Yeah.
try to separate that
Yeah.
from God
Yeah.
or the universe, right? They try to separate that. But you guys gotta, for you Christians out there, you freaking Bible thumpers out there, right?
Yeah.
You guys gotta understand, God created the universe, right?
Everything.
So if God created the universe, he also created everything within the universe.
And
Okay.
astrology is a blueprint of your soul from the second minute, hour, everything you were born. So it's like a blueprint, a map of your entire life. Like your life, everything about you was written before you were born. And that's what astrology is. It's all about timing.
There's a line in the Bible that I love to drop on people,
Oh, I want to hear it.
especially Christians.
Okay.
And it's, if there is not enough pages in the world
Yeah.
to fill up all the things that Jesus, and I'll say God because they're one and the same, Jesus and God have done, the miracles that they have done within creation and also with creation, there's not enough pages to write
For
on
sure.
the planet Earth.
Yep.
Everything that has been involved and has gone into what we are and the things that have happened.
Everything. We are energy. We are all energy.
Yeah. And by the way, you guys, science is like proving this every day more and more. And we're getting to the point where it's going to be like, we're going to have some, you scientists out there, you're going to have some real proof about some shit.
Oh, there's already proof. I mean, I can name a couple little small examples and then we'll get back to...
That Pluto's not an actual planet.
We're not even getting into that. Don't even get me started with that. Or
I'm
how
kidding.
there's like
I'm kidding because that's all I really know.
No, but with like our words and energy and it's just our vibrations and feelings and emotions and whatnot, there are experiments with water or plants. Take 2 plants or 2 glasses of water and speak ill into one or to one and positive into the other and watch one die and watch one grow. I mean, there are things. Google it.
Yeah, for sure. How about this? Okay, you have 2 plants.
Yeah.
One plant is in the corner of that room.
Yeah.
One plant is here. Okay. They have measured vibrations on the most minuscule amount that you have a caterpillar that's munching away at that plant on its leaves. Okay, you got to understand, a caterpillar is so small, a plant is so small, and it's eating this plant. That plant sends and communicates with this plant way downwind that there is a bug chewing on my leaf right now. And so what will happen is this plant over here that doesn't have any bugs will start to put off a freaking, what do they call that? The sex thing for men, a pheromone, right? Or a sex thing for men. I'm such a guy, you guys. I'm sorry. They'll put I don't know what the term is, but we'll call it a pheromone. They put off a scent. And what it does is it takes their leaves and it produces something on the leaves that makes it taste bad. Yeah. Right? How
keep
can
the
they
bug from
how
eating
did how did 2 plants who are so far away communicate like that?
Same as telepathy.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about somebody so much and then they call you? Same deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? That's
People are like, oh, whoa, that's weird.
manifestation.
It's fucking real.
Big time real. Big time real. And as we get more and more into science and all that stuff, they're just proving it more and more. So with atoms and molecules and all these things.
But I honestly think it takes somebody having their own experience. I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience. I can study and listen to podcasts, read books, listen to audibles, watch documentaries, whatever. But it's through my experiences that have taught me the most, where I'm like, whoa, you can't make this shit up.
And I got experiences that I can and never probably will share on here. I'll share with you. Yeah. But like they're just too personal. Yeah. To where it's like, I don't know that I could say it on here and have it reach people without it sounding so out of bounds.
And see, and I hope my goal is to get you to that place, because I used to be in that place, where I hope you can get to that place where you are comfortable enough to talk about it. And it doesn't matter how people perceive it, because everybody is always going to have their own perception and opinion, but it doesn't matter what they think. But think about all the people you're going to reach from you voicing it, you know?
There's some...
And that's okay too, like timing.
There is some stories that I have, and maybe I will share them, but maybe we'll talk about it first so I can figure out
It'll be the right timing when you're ready.
So I can I think I'm ready to share it, but I think what I need to do is share it with you first off air so that we can kind of like try to package it up in a way that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So, okay, back to the mirror situation. You're saying you're not a quitter and you wanted to know that you did everything you could to save your marriage, to make sure that you did everything you could. Yeah. Because one day you're going to have to look back and say, did I do everything I could to save my marriage? And that's exactly where I'm at right now. And I have said those words. I have said those words not just to my mom or my family or my friends, but to myself, because I know that one day I'm going to meet a creator who created me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to Jesus is going to be chilling next to me like, what's up, bro? And I'm going to be like sitting next to Jesus, and Jesus is going to be next to me, and we're going to be talking to God.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And God's just going to be like, I'm going to be like, you know what, God? I did everything I could, and my marriage is either going to be reconciled or it's not, but God's going to be okay with it because I know deep down that I did everything I could.
Yeah.
And
it just feels good. Like, I don't have any regrets. I feel good. I did everything I could. And another thing I want to say.
Did you make mistakes along the way?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fuck yeah.
'Cause
We're
I
all,
did.
nobody's perfect,
All
you know,
right.
and yeah. And how I responded. I mean, I reacted. There's so many things that I would have done differently, but I know I wouldn't be where I am today if I wouldn't have gone through those things. And I have a customer who's always binge listening to all my episodes.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And she goes, you have so many amazing like catchphrases that we need to put those on t-shirts, you know,
Heck
because
yeah.
I talk about them all the time.
Put them on a freaking tank top.
Yes.
Just put them in a tank top. I'll wear them in the gym. Let's go.
Yes. And one of my favorites is rejection is redirection. And I want to emphasize on that because I'm somebody where, you know, in the past, like if I would have started dating a guy and he wasn't into me, which has happened.
Weird.
I would.
Because I don't know how.
Thank you.
Come
Back
on.
then, older version of Tasha. She might have been a little cray, okay?
All right.
But I would have, like back then, I would beat myself up. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not smart enough. You know,
Gosh
like we all
dang,
do that
Tasha.
to ourselves.
The universe needs you, Tasha.
Oh my God. But no, I'm saying, you know, we're all human and we go through these things. And I used to feel that way. And here you beat yourself up. But now I will never be with somebody who questions if I'm for them. And I see this with a lot of my friends. They get hung up on it, like, you know, so wrapped up in why doesn't he like me and whatnot. I'm like, thank the universe for protecting you. Don't think of it as that person rejecting you. The universe removed that person out of your life because something better is in store.
For sure.
You know, so that's one of my favorites. Rejection is redirection. That goes for jobs. If you don't get the job, instead people being like, what the fuck, da da da. I'm like, thank you, universe.
Imagine if you didn't do what you did.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine if I didn't do what I did, and we'll talk about that on another episode.
Yeah.
But Tasha, some shit is about to go down
Yeah.
in the Small Works Pro universe. You guys,
Yes.
just so you guys know, I run a business. It's called Small Works Pro. It's a general contracting company, and I'm not out here trying to plug myself. What I'm
Promote yourself.
But, okay,
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're like, okay.
I'm like, yeah, okay. So, but like this business, from the day I started it to right now, it has never ever been about money. I've had
It's your
people.
soul.
I've had jobs that I have declined that were
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Yep.
And I've had jobs that I've taken, and we're on the cusp of that right now, which is I didn't take the job because of money.
Yeah.
I did not take the job because of money. It didn't start like that. It started out because of a relationship I had built with another
Yeah.
contractor.
Yeah.
And I was doing it to help a contractor, and it was another job. And now I have the most amazing relationship built up with this place called Agape Recovery Center, or
Yeah.
Agape Unlimited. And by the way, it's ran all by women. There's like 5 or 6 women in the front office, the executive director, the assistant executive director.
And
the
I would love
business
to
director.
connect more with you on how to get more involved with like charity and volunteer stuff. That's
Oh,
something
I got a
that's
gang
been,
of charity.
Yeah.
I got all of that.
Awesome.
I got hooks and plugs and people.
Perfect.
And you should have Sarah in here
Yeah,
from Agape.
definitely.
You're
Yeah.
talking about an OG, like I think she's in her 50s, and she's like ex-biker, like
Okay.
like you
Send
know,
them
when you-
all my way.
Oh my gosh, Tasha! Like I just go down there to hang out because it's so entertaining,
Yeah.
and they're like my people.
Yeah.
Like flawed people who know they're flawed but love each other to death and are
That's how
loyal
we are
to
here
one
at
another.
Mystic.
Yeah.
We're a tribe.
Just exactly.
Yeah.
So loyal, and we'll just go to war for each other.
But
right?
that's the most important part when you're talking about relationships and not about money and whatnot. That's how we are here. We are the people who are going to say it how it is
Yeah.
and speak our truth and not sugarcoat things because you're just hindering your growth that way.
Big time.
I love not confrontation. I love constructive criticism
And
because it's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah, and it's man, it can be hard to take sometimes.
Yeah,
And
but that's your ego.
big time.
That's your ego.
And that's why everybody should train that jujitsu, because
Yeah.
you get on those mats and there's no place for it. Right? And you have somebody who's been doing it a lot longer and a lot more, just like life.
Yeah.
And you have to put your ego aside, because it's like,
Yeah.
hey, this dude that is, you guys, I'm 5'10", 200 pounds, and I'm pretty strong guy,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I've been training jujitsu and we'll just call it the martial arts
Yeah.
for a while. I wrestled for 13 years. I have some, but when you have a guy who's 120 pounds strangle you over and over and over again, imagine where your pride and your ego has to go.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no room for it. You realize that this guy will kill me on the streets, and he looks like a little pipsqueak.
I
Right?
haven't heard anybody say pipsqueak in a long time.
Okay, so I know we got to wrap
Yep,
this up.
yep.
Thank you so much again for having
Oh my
me.
God, I'm so excited. I think we should definitely get on a regular basis,
down.
weekly, because
down.
I love, oops, I thought my phone was on silent.
It could
Sorry,
be
guys.
anything. Current events. It could be.
Yeah,
got
I
tons
just
of
feel like
business
we have
stuff.
so much to talk about.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just super excited. And you know what? Like I was saying earlier, the universe works in mysterious ways and divine timing. We were brought back into each other's lives for a reason. And I feel like we can just be really powerful together on making an impact, for sure.
Absolutely, and that's what I want to. That's what I really want to do. Not just
Yeah, that's my goal, my mission.
The benefits and the amount of time that people have invested into my
Yeah.
life. And I tell this to people all the time: if you do anything in life, invest into other people's lives.
Absolutely.
Because all you're doing is investing into yourself.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like that.
And
but
you
you
learn
are.
so much about yourself through
Yes.
other people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Austin. It has been incredible. You ready to go lose at some basketball at the arcade?
Not on this day.
And we will see you all soon.
Bye.